I never thought I'd find myself sharing something so personal, but here I am, laying it all out there in hopes that maybe someone else can relate or even learn from my experience. My name is Mike, and I've been married to Sarah for 7 years. We had what I thought was a good life together, but I guess the universe had other plans. I want to talk about the day I discovered Sarah was cheating on me, but first, let me set the stage a bit. Life was pretty uneventful for us. We lived in a cozy two-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood in Austin, Texas. Both of us had stable jobs. Sarah worked as a project manager for a tech company, and I was a high school teacher. We didn't have kids yet, just a couple of dogs that we spoiled rotten. We'd been through the usual ups and downs, job changes, family issues, and the stress of adulting. But we made it work, or so I thought. Lately, however, I'd been sensing something was off. Sarah had been acting distant, distracted, and often came home late with excuses that didn't quite add up. Traffic was terrible, she'd say, or I had to help a colleague with a project. I wanted to trust her, I really did. But intuition is a funny thing. It nags at you until you can't ignore it anymore. I started to notice other things too. Her phone was always face down, and she'd jump when I walked into the room while she was texting. There were little changes in her behavior that I chalked up to work stress, but deep down, I was beginning to feel that nagging itch of suspicion. One Friday evening, I decided to surprise her with a nice dinner when she got home. I had prepared her favorite dish, pasta with homemade sauce, and set the table with candles and everything. As I was cleaning up, I noticed her purse sitting on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to take it to her, but something made me pause. My heart raced as I made the impulsive decision to take a quick look inside. I know, breaching her privacy wasn't right. But at that moment, my gut screamed at me to do it. What I found was nothing short of a nightmare. Hidden away in a side pocket was a crumpled piece of paper that looked like it had been ripped from a notebook. I unfolded it and saw names and numbers. My stomach dropped. There were at least 3 different men's names on that paper, one of them being a guy from her office named Derek. The paper was filled with little notes and a chilling reminder of the dates and times they had met up. My hands started shaking, and I was suddenly overwhelmed with a mix of anger and betrayal. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to throw the paper away and pretend I hadn't seen it. But soon my mind was racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Was I really so blind? I waited for her to come home, my heart pounding in my chest, dreading the confrontation that was about to happen. When she finally walked through the door, looking all polished and fresh, the anger boiled inside me. I confronted her right there in the living room. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with rage. As she looked at me, her face morphed from confusion to panic, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. "What's wrong, Mike?" she asked, feigning innocence. I held out the paper, my hand shaking as I thrust it towards her. "Why do you have this?" I demanded, my heart racing. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she was going to deny everything, but the look in her eyes told me that she knew she was cornered. "I can explain, Mike," she stammered, her voice shaky. "It's not what you think." And there it was, the moment where I realized just how deeply she had deceived me. I was ready for her excuses, but nothing could prepare me for the lies that came spilling out of her mouth. She told me that the notes were nothing, that they were from a work project, and that Derek was just a colleague she was helping out. I could hear the desperation in her voice. I felt my heart shatter piece by piece as I listened to her spin her web of lies. I stood there, the paper still clenched in my fist, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Sarah's frantic explanations echoed in my ears, but all I could think about was how effortlessly she was lying to me. The warmth of our house felt cold and unwelcoming, and I could almost hear the walls closing in around me. "Mike, please, just let me explain," she said, her voice rising with urgency. "You're misunderstanding everything. I've been busy with work. You know how demanding it can get." She reached out to touch my arm, and I instinctively recoiled. How could she think that a simple gesture could mend the rift that had split us apart? Busy with work, I scoffed, my voice rising in disbelief. "This has nothing to do with work, Sarah. I found those names in your bag. Don't treat me like I'm stupid." I felt the heat of anger coursing through me, and I could see that she was starting to crack under the pressure of my confrontation. Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. A part of me wanted to believe her, to give her the benefit of the doubt, but the evidence was right in front of me. How could you do this to us? I asked, my voice softer now but laced with pain. We were supposed to be a team, Sarah. She took a deep breath, struggling to compose herself. I'm sorry, Mike. I never meant for it to happen. I just got caught up in everything. I thought you wouldn't understand. She was pleading now, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and desperation. Caught up in what? Cheating on your husband. Is that what you thought I wouldn't understand? I couldn't hold back the hurt anymore. Each word felt like a knife cutting deeper into my heart. I wanted to know why. Why would she risk everything we had built together for a fling with someone from work? I didn't mean to hurt you, she exclaimed, her voice rising as the tears streamed down her cheeks. Derek and I were just flirting. It was nothing serious, but then it spiraled. I didn't know how to stop it. Flirting? I felt my blood boil. How could she trivialize it like that? Flirting? You call that flirting? I shot back, holding up the crumpled paper. You think this is just some game? You've been lying to me. Sarah, you've been sleeping with someone else. No, no, I swear it's not like that, she cried, and for a moment I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. She seemed genuinely terrified that I was about to walk away. It was a mistake, just a stupid mistake, I promise. It didn't mean anything. What's the matter, Sarah? Because it sounds like it meant a hell of a lot to me. I felt the rage building within me, mixing with the sorrow. I was heartbroken, betrayed, and angry all at once. You've had the audacity to betray my trust while I worked hard to provide for us. You'd think you could be honest with me about what you were going through. I remember her face shifting, the defiance replaced by guilt. There was no more bravado. She was merely a person caught in her own lies, and I could see the realization of what she had done weighing heavily on her shoulders. But despite all the pain she had caused, I still felt a pang of sadness watching her break down. Mike, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, she cried, and now she really was sobbing, her chest heaving. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would all be okay, but I couldn't. There was a wall between us now, constructed from lies and betrayal, and I felt powerless to break it down. It was a strange mix of emotions: love, anger, betrayal, and sadness. I had never seen Sarah like this before. She was usually so strong and composed, a woman who knew how to tackle life head-on. But now she was a shadow of the person I had married, a woman who had made choices that shattered our reality. I can't keep doing this, I said finally, my voice low and shaky. I don't even know who you are anymore. I turned away from her, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I needed space. I needed clarity. I had to figure out what to do next, because this couldn't just be swept under the rug. As I walked out of the room, I felt like I was walking out on everything I had built. The love, the future, the dreams we had shared. Everything was in limbo now, and I wasn't sure if I could ever go back to the way things were. The emotional roller coaster was just starting, and I had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole went. Would I be able to forgive her? Could we ever rebuild the trust that was so carelessly shattered? I needed time to think, and I knew it was going to be a long journey ahead. After that night, my life felt like it had been flipped upside down. The days that followed were a blur. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the confrontation over and over in my head. I found myself sitting in my classroom, staring at my students, but I couldn't focus. I was there physically, but mentally I was grappling with the reality of my crumbling marriage. I had always believed that Sarah and I were solid, that we had built a strong foundation. Now it felt like the ground beneath my feet was eroding. When I did manage to return home, the atmosphere was suffocating. Sarah was often quiet, looking at me with a mix of guilt and fear. I wanted to yell at her too, make her fully understand the pain she had caused, but I also felt a strange compulsion to comfort her, to hold her and tell her that everything would be all right. Yet deep down, I knew that wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't erase the betrayal. Mike, can we talk? Sarah finally ventured one night after dinner, her voice barely above a whisper. I had been avoiding her, and the silence in the house had become unbearable. But I wasn't ready to talk. I didn't think there was anything left to say that could mend what had been broken. Talk about what, Sarah? About how you've been lying to me, or how you've been with another man. I replied, the bitterness creeping into my tone. The hurt was still fresh, and it was too soon for any real discussion. I was still grappling with the emotional fallout, trying to comprehend how someone I loved so deeply could betray me so completely. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry, she pleaded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I don't want to lose you. I want to make this right. Please just give me a chance to explain everything. Explain what exactly? I snapped back, frustration boiling over. How you got caught up in some stupid fling with Derek, how you thought I wouldn't notice. You don't understand how completely you've shattered my trust, how every single word you say now feels tainted. The tears finally spilled over, running down her cheeks. Mike, I was lost. I didn't know how to talk to you about what I was feeling. I thought I could handle it, but it spiraled out of control. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe me. The sincerity in her voice mixed with the anger in my heart, creating a tempest of emotions. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But the image of her with another man loomed large in my mind. I could almost picture them together, laughing, touching, sharing moments that were meant for us. I felt the sharp sting of betrayal again, and I turned away, unable to look at her. I can't do this right now, I finally said, my voice strained. I need some time. I need to think. With that, I walked out of the room, my heart heavy with sadness and confusion. The following days were a blur of routine and turmoil. I kept my distance from Sarah, spending more time at work and with friends. I tried to distract myself, but every laughter, every smile felt hollow. There was a constant ache in my chest, a gnawing reminder that my life had drastically changed. As I navigated the days of avoidance, I began to explore the idea of revenge. Not that I wanted to hurt Sarah out of spite, but the thought of regaining some sense of control over my life appealed to me. I didn't want to just be the betrayed husband. I wanted to reclaim my power. I wanted her to feel the same kind of pain I felt, to understand the depth of her betrayal. I started to hatch a plan. The idea wasn't fully formed, but I felt a sense of urgency driving me. I needed to find a way to show her that actions have consequences, that there was a price to pay for the trust she had so carelessly thrown away. I considered reaching out to someone, maybe another woman, just to see what it felt like to have someone else's attention. I knew. It was petty, but part of me wanted to turn the tables. I recalled a girl I had a crush on back in college, Rachel. We had shared a few flirtations back then before life took us in different directions. I wondered if Rachel would still be open to catching up. It felt like a risky move, but I was starting to feel desperate. I wanted to feel wanted, to feel desirable again, even if it was just for a brief moment. After a few days of tossing the idea around in my head, I finally took the plunge. I found her on social media and sent her a message. It was casual, just a "Hey, it's been a while. How have you been?" But my heart raced as I hit send. I didn't know if Rachel would even respond, but the possibility felt both thrilling and terrifying. I had crossed a line. I was actively seeking out an emotional connection with someone else to fill the void Sarah had created. That evening, as I sat in the living room alone, scrolling through social media, I felt a mix of excitement and guilt. Was I being petty? Was this really the way to heal? But I couldn't help myself. The thought that I might have a chance to make Sarah feel a fraction of the pain I felt was intoxicating. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to play my part in this twisted game of revenge. I would show her what it meant to lose someone you love, and maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to move forward, even if it meant losing myself in the process. The next few days were a whirlwind. I was caught in a storm of emotions, grappling with my pain and anger while trying to navigate the new path I had forged. I kept my distance from Sarah, spending evenings either at work or at the gym, trying to channel my anger into something productive. But all the while, the thought of reaching out to Rachel was simmering in the back of my mind, igniting a sense of anticipation I hadn't felt in a long time. When Rachel finally replied, my heart raced. "Hey, Mike. It has been a while. I'm good, just busy with work and life. How about you?" The simple words ignited a spark of hope within me. We exchanged a few messages. reminiscing about old times, and before long, we were discussing the possibility of meeting up for coffee. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Part of me felt guilty for flirting with the idea of rekindling something with Rachel, especially when my marriage was still in ruins. But a stronger part of me craved connection, validation, and maybe even a tiny sliver of revenge. I wanted to reclaim my self-worth, and if I was honest, I wanted Sarah to feel the sting of jealousy. The day we met, I dressed carefully, something I hadn't done in a while. I put on my favorite shirt and made sure my hair was styled just right. I wanted to look good to feel good. When I arrived at the cafe, I was both nervous and excited. Rachel was already there, looking stunning as always, her smile brightening the entire room. "Wow, it's so good to see you," she exclaimed as I approached. We hugged, and I felt an unexpected rush of warmth at the mere contact. We settled at a table, and as we talked, I felt the weight of my recent heartbreak lift, if only for a moment. Rachel made me laugh, reminded me of who I used to be before my world turned upside down. As the conversation flowed, I felt a spark of connection, something that had been missing in my life for months. I could see Rachel was genuinely interested in what I had to say, and the attention felt intoxicating. She was fun, engaging, and it felt so refreshingly different from the tension that had become the norm with Sarah. I tried to keep the conversation light, avoiding any mention of my marriage or the chaos that had unfolded in my life, but inevitably the topic came up. "So, are you seeing anyone right now?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I hesitated for a moment, weighing my words carefully. "Not really, just got out of a rough patch, to be honest." The admission hung in the air, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. I hadn't fully gotten out of anything. I was still living in that rough patch. "Sorry to hear that," Rachel said softly, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Breakups can be tough, but they can also lead to new beginnings, right?" I nodded, feeling a mix of appreciation and turmoil. "Yeah, I guess, just trying to figure things out." I couldn't help but think about Sarah and the mess that had become of our life together. I was navigating these turbulent waters, but at that moment, sitting across from Rachel, I felt like I was finally beginning to breathe again. As the conversation deepened, I began to flirt back, teasing her playfully about our college days. The laughter came easy, and I realized just how much I had missed that connection. We exchanged stories and laughed until our sides hurt. There was a chemistry there that I hadn't anticipated, and it both scared and thrilled me. As we finished our coffee, I felt a bold surge of courage. "Hey, would you like to grab dinner sometime? I know a great place nearby," I suggested, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. "Definitely." "I'd love that," she replied, and I felt a rush of excitement and apprehension. Was I really doing this? Was I ready to venture into something new while still tangled in the mess of my marriage? Later that evening, I returned home feeling giddy and conflicted. I had just spent hours with a woman who made me feel alive again, yet the reality of my situation with Sarah loomed large. As I walked through the door, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of worry and hope. "Mike, can we talk?" she asked, her voice tentative. I could see the tension in her posture, the way she gripped the edge of the couch as if it was the only thing holding her together. "Sure," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. I wasn't ready to open up about my day, but I knew we needed to address the elephant in the room, her infidelity and the state of our marriage. "I've been thinking about what happened," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I hurt you, and I can't express how sorry I am. I want to make things right, Mike. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." There was a rawness to her voice that tugged at my heart, but I couldn't shake the resentment that bubbled just beneath the surface. "I don't know if we can go back to how things were," I replied honestly, shaking my head. "You broke my trust, Sarah. It's not something that can just be fixed with words. Please, just give me a chance to prove that I can change," she pleaded, her eyes searching mine for a hint of understanding. "I want to show you that I'm still the woman you fell in love with." In that moment, I felt a wave of confusion crash over me. I was torn between the woman who had been my partner for years and the new connection I had started to explore with Rachel. I wasn't ready to make any promises, especially when I didn't yet know what I wanted. "I need time," I said finally, my voice quieter this time. I need to figure out what I want. As I walked away from her, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was caught in a web of emotions, unsure of the path ahead. I had tasted something new and exhilarating, but the lingering pain of betrayal still hung over me like a dark cloud. I was at a crossroads, and the choices I made in the coming days would determine the course of my life and my marriage. The days that followed were a relentless tug-of-war between my heart and my mind. I was still reeling from the emotional chaos that Sarah had unleashed, and every interaction with her felt like stepping on broken glass. The tension in our house was palpable, and I was increasingly aware of how our dynamic had shifted. I found solace and excitement in my connection with Rachel. We exchanged messages frequently, sometimes even during the day when I was supposed to be focusing on my job. My lunch breaks turned into little escapes where I could dream about a future that didn't involve pain and betrayal. Planning our next dinner became a bright spot in my otherwise cloudy existence. But as I grew closer to Rachel, I felt the guilt wrap around my heart like a vice. I was still married, and despite the pain Sarah had caused me, part of me felt like I was abandoning her at her most vulnerable moment. The moments I spent with Rachel were exhilarating, yes, but they also felt like a betrayal of a different kind. I was becoming the very thing I had despised, someone who sought comfort in another person while still being connected to someone else. That Friday night, we had planned to go to dinner. I prepared myself, choosing a nice shirt and carefully styling my hair. I felt a rush of anticipation as I approached the cafe where we had agreed to meet. My heart raced, reminding me of the butterflies I had felt in high school. I was excited to see Rachel and to explore the chemistry we had stumbled upon. The evening was magical. We talked and laughed effortlessly over a lovely meal. Each smile she gave me felt like a spark igniting something within me that I had thought was extinguished. For those few hours I felt free, unencumbered by the weight of my troubled marriage. We shared stories, asked each other about our dreams, and even flirted openly. I felt like a new man. But as the date progressed, something began to gnaw at me. Each time Rachel touched my arm or leaned in closer, I couldn't shake the nagging voice in the back of my mind reminding me of Sarah. It was a haunting reminder of my commitment and the vows I had taken. I tried to push it away, but the guilt was relentless. As we finished our meal and prepared to leave, Rachel turned to me, her expression softening. "I really enjoyed tonight, Mike. I'm so glad we reconnected," she said, her eyes shining with sincerity. "It feels like old times, doesn't it?" "Yeah, it does," I agreed, feeling a rush of warmth. But then the guilt hit me like a lightning bolt. "But I need to be honest with you. Things are complicated right now. I'm still married and I don't want to hurt you." Rachel's smile faltered but quickly returned, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I understand, but you deserve to be happy, Mike. Just remember to take care of yourself, okay?" Her words lingered in the air as we stepped outside. A bittersweet feeling washed over me. I was caught between two worlds. I wanted to explore this new connection, to feel desired and valued again, but I also felt the heavy chains of my responsibility anchoring me to Sarah. I returned home that night, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. Sarah was waiting for me, her expression a mix of worry and hope. "How was dinner?" she asked, her voice tentative. "It was good," I replied, avoiding her gaze. I didn't want to dive into details, I didn't want to hurt her further, yet I felt like I was lying by omission. "Can we talk?" she asked again, a hint of desperation in her tone. The last thing I wanted was to prolong the tension, but I could see the hurt in her eyes, the yearning for connection. "Okay," I said, bracing myself for another difficult conversation. We sat down on the couch and I could feel the weight of what was about to unfold. "I've been thinking about us," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to work on things, Mike. I know I messed up, but I love you. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right." My heart twisted at her words and I felt a pang of sympathy. She was so vulnerable and it was hard to see her like this. But the memories of her betrayal loomed large in my mind, and I struggled to find the right words. "I don't know, Sarah, it's going to take time for me to process everything," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. You have to understand that it's not that simple. I know, she said, tears welling in her eyes, but I need you to know that I'm serious about making this work. I'll do anything, Mike. Just please don't give up on us. As her words hung in the air, I could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I was torn between the love I had for Sarah and the allure of the new connection I had found with Rachel. After a long silence, I finally spoke. I can't promise anything right now. I need time to think about what I truly want. The disappointment in Sarah's eyes was palpable, and I felt like I was shattering her hope all over again. I didn't want to hurt her, but I also knew I had to be honest with myself. I was still reeling from the betrayal and was not ready to jump into a reconciliation without truly understanding my feelings. As I walked away from her, I felt the weight of my choices crashing down on me. I had to confront my own emotions head-on. It was clear that the road ahead would be difficult, and I would have to navigate the consequences of both my actions and Sarah's betrayal. The following days were filled with introspection. I had to ask myself what I wanted for my future. Did I want to try to salvage my marriage, or was I ready to embrace a new chapter with Rachel? The answers felt elusive, and the thought of making a definitive choice filled me with dread. I knew I had to make a decision soon, but the fear of the unknown loomed large. I was staring down the crossroads of my life, and each path held its own risks and rewards. I didn't want to act impulsively, but every moment felt like a countdown to a choice that would change everything. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, the weight of my decisions pressed down harder. I oscillated between wanting to salvage my marriage and seeking a fresh start with Rachel. Every time Sarah and I spoke, I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, and it tore me apart. She was so desperate to make things right, to prove that she could change, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things had gone too far. One evening, as I sat on the couch, lost in thought, I received a text from Rachel. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." The simple words brought a smile to my face, but they also sent a bolt of guilt through me. I was torn. I couldn't keep living this double life. I decided it was time for a heart-to-heart conversation with Sarah. We needed to lay everything on the table and face the truth, no matter how painful it would be. That night, I took a deep breath and called Sarah into the living room. She sensed the seriousness in my tone and took a seat, her expression wary. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I started, my heart pounding in my chest. "We need to talk about what's going on between us and what I want moving forward." "Okay," she replied, her voice steady but laced with anxiety. "I'm listening." "I don't want to drag this out any longer," I continued, feeling the weight of my words. "You made a mistake and it hurt me deeply. I can't ignore that, and I don't want to pretend everything can go back to normal." "I understand," she said softly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I've messed up and I'm so sorry, but I can change, Mike. I just need you to believe in me." "I want to believe you, but I also need to be honest with myself. I've been seeing someone else, Rachel," I admitted, watching her expression shift from hope to devastation. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick. I could see her processing my words, the reality of the situation settling in. "You've been talking to her." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and I could see the hurt flash across her face. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I needed someone to talk to, someone who made me feel good about myself again," I confessed, my heart aching at her pain. "I didn't intend for it to happen, but it did, and I can't ignore how I feel." "Mike, please don't do this," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We can work through this. I love you. I'll do anything to make it right." "I know you love me, but I can't just forget what happened," I said firmly, feeling the emotional distance widen between us. "I need to be honest about my feelings. I'm not sure if I can rebuild trust after everything that's happened." Sarah began to sob, and my heart twisted painfully. I didn't want to hurt her, but I also couldn't sacrifice my own happiness for the sake of saving a marriage that had already been shattered. "Maybe we need to take a break," I suggested gently, watching her face fall. "Some time apart could help us both figure out what we really want." "Time apart?" she echoed, disbelief in her voice. "Are you serious? You would really walk away from everything we built?" "It's not that simple, Sarah. I just need space to think. I don't want to make a hasty decision, but I can't keep living like this either. I need to explore my feelings without the weight of our past hanging over me. She looked down, the air thick with tension and sadness. I never wanted it to come to this, she whispered. I thought we could get through this together. I really thought we were stronger than this. I thought so too, but now I'm not so sure. I need to find out who I am without you and to see if there's a path back for us, I said, my voice trembling. We sat in silence, the reality of our situation sinking in. I felt helpless, watching the woman I once loved crumble before me. But I also realized that I couldn't be the one to fix everything. I needed to take the time to heal, to think about what I wanted for my future. Eventually, Sarah wiped her tears and nodded. If that's what you need, then I'll respect your decision, she said, her voice wavering. But just know that I'm still here and I'll always love you. As I left the living room, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The decision to take a break felt like the right choice, but it was still heart-wrenching. I had loved Sarah, and part of me always would. Yet there was also a part of me that craved the new life I could build, one where I didn't have to carry the burden of betrayal. In the days that followed, I spent time sorting through my feelings and exploring what life without Sarah would look like. I saw Rachel a few more times, and those meetings filled a void I hadn't realized was there. But I also took time to reflect on my own happiness, on what I truly wanted from life. Ultimately, I realized that the path forward was not solely about revenge or retribution. It was about finding peace within myself. I learned that healing takes time and that it's okay to prioritize my own emotional well-being. As I moved forward, I understood that life is messy and complicated. Sometimes, we have to make tough choices that don't feel right, and that's okay. I hoped that Sarah would find her way back to herself too, and perhaps one day we could reconnect on different terms. But for now, I was focused on rebuilding my own life, one step at a time. In sharing my story, I hope others can find solace in knowing they're not alone in their struggles. Relationships are complex, and navigating the aftermath of betrayal is never easy. But through it all, it's essential to remember that we deserve to be happy, to heal, and to find our own paths, even if it means making hard choices along the way.